joining me in doing this.
My pleasure.
Talk about some photo and art. Keep it light.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so I guess we'll just start out with like telling people how we met.
How we met?
Yeah.
Okay. Like I want to say the first time we like really got a chance to hang was like uh after a show one night, I want to say. Then it
Yeah.
became like a little more like we got to like chat and have a glass of wine and
Oh, I actually remember the exact. Yes, that's accurate.
Yeah, in the AD room. I know that was like one of
Yeah.
the first times we really hung out. But man, I think the first, yeah, it definitely was on set. I mean, probably the first time I met David had been the same time too, right?
Yeah, and then after kind of hanging out on set, you would come, like you and Allie and the girls would come over for barbecues and stuff. So we got
Yeah,
to.
that's when it became like fun because I think we clicked right away. Uh, you know, as a whole, I'm so grateful that you and Ali clicked, and I think you guys are both kind of like badass chicks. You know what I mean? That can like be
He's a
beautiful.
badass chick for sure.
Well, no, I mean you're the same way. Like you guys are like beautiful girls that can like play dirty and like get shit done, so to speak.
Oh my gosh.
So
I admire your wife so much.
yeah, she's like a maker,
Yes.
a modern maker. You should see our garden right now; it's amazing.
Jealous.
But yeah, and then so yeah, coming over to I mean barbecues and backyard games and beers and wine and just a lot of laughing. That's all lots of laughing.
For sure. Love that I was able to rope you guys into coming and working with me on Cherokee.
Well, I was gonna say that was kind of Then I remember you reaching out because of that originally. First, it was for the girls. I think is the first conversation. Anyways, it was like, oh, my client saw a picture of you and your girls or something like along those lines. On the red carpet. I think for the Fuller House premiere or something.
Yeah.
And be interested, and then it went from that to like. Hey, maybe your wife and maybe you, and then it became a thing, and it was great because then we got a chance to actually together, and Allie and I got a chance to work together, which is fun.
Which was so fun for me too. Like
yeah, totally. And then you got to work with Shia, which was really cool because that was like Shia's kind of a growing up experience for her. It's sort of like a moment where she got to like be a pro.
She was so good on set. Like
she had to deal with pressure.
Yeah.
We were just looking at the videos the other day because like the B-roll stuff that you had captured, that the highlight reel kind of thing, scenes. In fact, Allie just used it for like an agent situation because it's fun. It shows her behind the scenes, and
I love that.
It gave her an opportunity, I think, to kind of tap into a deeper, more mature side of herself, where pressure was applied and she had to deliver, and it's not mom and dad telling her what to do, it's someone else, and be directed and all that good stuff.
What is your first memory of being photographed?
When I was real young, my mom set up some sort of artsy thing where I was in some studio. This is like in Ellensburg, Washington, and I was like 3, maybe something like that.
Okay.
And I had this giant bowl cut, and it was just all I remember, it was in a big like loft, and that I remember being white. And it's funny now understanding, and it was lots of like loft type windows and stuff. But now understanding as I'm older, like the setting of a good studio, it was that like giant open kind of soft white feel. And yeah, I remember just doing like little poses, totally my first like thought of being photographed. But then it was nothing for years. Not like my mom continued to get me.
You weren't like model baby?
Not at all. No. So then it wasn't really until like actually getting photographed, besides like school pictures or senior pictures, all that kind of stuff. When I made the decision to, make the move to LA to, pursue this career, I had to get headshots. I remember feeling maybe empowered almost. I felt like a sense of, it was almost a sense of achievement. Here I am shooting on I remember we were shooting in like a park in Seattle, but like it made me feel like I was achieving something. Like
Yeah,
we
like
were
already. You
I was on my
the
way.
job yet, but you're like, oh, I'm doing
Yeah,
it.
no, totally. I remember like people walking by looking and thinking to myself, that's right. Like we're doing this. But meanwhile, like here I am just with some dude in the camera on the side of the park, you know? But it was in a place in my life where the whole shift had been, you know, like, okay, this is the direction we're going. So everything felt like, okay.
I think that means you're going on the right path, right? When you're all those like firsts mean something so big.
I agree. Yeah, no, 100%. Like the joy of that comes along with like hope is something that I wish I could just bottle and tap into to this day. Like the same, you know, just getting out of bed going, hey, I'm chasing some crazy dream and it makes me so happy, you know.
Was creativity encouraged in your household when you were growing up?
Creativity and art were like a huge thing in my house, and film and TV specifically film.
Oh,
My
wow.
mom was obsessed, and that was our main conversation, like of hobby outside of just like life, was film and TV. And like when I was young, the Oscars were like the Super Bowl in our house. And when I was like a little elementary kid, my mom was taking me to the art house to see like crazy, cool, sophisticated movies. Like she wasn't taking me to go see superhero movies that my friends were seeing. We were going and seeing like, I remember seeing like My Left Foot or like The Crying Game, like crazy, weird movies that are like heavy and deep when I was like a young kid. And it really had an influence on the way that I saw filmmaking. We'd go to dinner afterwards and talk about the directing and, you know, the costumes and the casting and things. It's like a little kid. And this was my mom. She wasn't like studied on it. She just loved it. And she's an artist. She's a designer and, you know, painter and interior designer and all that. So it was a huge part of my growing up. And so there was a lot of that in my house growing up, a lot of encouragement, a lot of just free spirit encouragement. And it's funny because me as a child, I was very serious kid where I was like, well, I loved the arts, but I was like, but I got to go put a suit and tie on and go to Wall Street and make a bunch of money. And like, that's where I'm going to go.
That's so interesting. What brought you to that?
I think there was part of me that like not growing up with money made me think, okay, now I got to grow up and go make a bunch of money. So how do you do that? Well, where do I see people making money? Is on, you know, in New York City on Wall Street, right? Or something like that, you know, that idea, you know, go be, you know, corporate. So that was my journey the whole way. You know, I went to business school, I had 3 business degrees. I was very gung-ho in that world, but I always had art and drama as a hobby. Even it was my minor in college the whole way. The fun thing was I always was able to love it without thinking it was going to be my career. So I was able to love it. My mom started sending me to drama camp when I was like 10 years old. And so I'd spend the summer at like drama camp, like, which was very different from a lot of my friends. And it wasn't until my senior year in college where I had this internship with a real estate development company, which is where I thought the direction that I wanted to go at the time. Fortunately, it was a disaster. The company was falling apart. So in one day's time, I went from never considering it a career to never considering anything else a career. It was a moment in time that happened when I was in a grocery line in Seattle, actually. The story goes, I'm standing in line and I see a picture of Ben Affleck on the cover of an Us Weekly. And he was at it was a paparazzi shot of him at a baseball game, wearing like a Red Sox hat and, you know, watching his Red Sox, his big Red Sox fan. And there was something so relatable about it to me because here's an artist that I looked up to. I loved Good Will Hunting. He was young at the time. He had just come onto the scene. Like this was, you know, almost 20 years ago. And there was something I could really relate to and admire in that moment. And was like, he's not some like super, you know, like I said, the separation of thespians and jocks. Like I could see in him, I could see it exactly. I was like, here's just a dude that grew up playing sports for sure, but also had a love for the arts and is just from some neighborhood. Like I'm from some neighborhood, like whatever, you know, we're just dudes is what I could relate to. It just clicked in that moment. And it was like that. And I honestly never looked back after that one moment.
All like, from a paparazzi picture, which
I know. Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. Because there was something, it's funny it made him very real to me because it was a candid, captured shot of him being a sports fan. He was not being an actor. He wasn't being anyone. He was being his like true, most authentic self.
Yeah.
And
Or was it candid?
Well, that's true. Who knows? It may not have been. It was, the only reason I feel like it was just because it was like he was literally amongst, thousands of fans, super zoomed in on him, but it may not have been because that's the old trick in the book, as we all know.
Right. No, not everyone does know.
Not everyone knows. Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. The paparazzi can be planted.
Yeah. Have you ever been with anybody that's called like TMZ on themselves?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, that doesn't mean that's not the case. I've had crazy experiences with paparazzi, and none of it had to do with me specifically. When I worked on Furious 7, and after the tragedy of Paul Walker, the paparazzi was relentless. And that was the first time I had ever experienced it, from like the helicopter thing, and because we were supposed to be really like private and secretive, so to speak.
Right.
And they had marked off like a mile. We were shooting at the beach. It's for the final scene of the film. And closed off everything as far as you could see in any direction, but still they spotted like way like snipers up on the hill with the long telephoto lenses. They spotted them up there. And the next thing you know, there's a helicopter, and sure enough, in the following week, there's all kinds of publications, and it was like those shots, And that was a weird thing too, because my picture popped up in a lot of the trades, like Hollywood Reporter, blah, 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 big trades with false information. And that was one of the first times I was like, oh, that's weird. They can report anything they want.
Right.
And they had my picture with other names because the narrative being told was different than what was actually going on. But it was just interesting knowing the truth, being in the middle of the truth and going, oh, so this is kind of how the media works. Like, this is kind of how it starts. One guy takes one photograph and, it kind of goes, goes from there. And then somebody has an idea of what's going on. And then someone tells their version of the story. And it was the first time I'd really witnessed it kind of, you hear people say, oh, don't believe what you read. But then I was like, oh, well, don't believe everything you read.
Right.
Because sometimes paparazzi can be fun and great. And obviously people love it. They want the attention. They want to be on TMZ, let's be honest. And everybody wins. I've seen paparazzi outside of Craig's, for example. Like recently I was at Craig's. And Jojo Siwa, Jojo,
the big
like,
bow?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
She came out and she has this like unicorn rainbow bubblegum BMW. It's all painted. It says JoJo on the side. So it's a big,
so like she's
there. And the paparazzi surrounded her and she went into game mode and like was dancing for him. And it was a big, fun, happy, everyone was getting along. She's passing out bows and it seemed like a very positive thing.
Yeah.
Going back to the Furious 7 thing, to me felt like dirty.
Yeah.
They were trying to invade privacy.
Right.
And that was different.
I mean, that's an interesting thing though, too, from like have you ever had just like people take pictures of you at a restaurant with just like blatantly without permission and stuff like that? I mean, it's almost like an extension of paparazzi in some like
it totally is, because especially when I get out of LA, because in LA like everyone's it's different, but outside of LA where I would get recognized more, so to speak, you'll have people come up to you, like the selfie is the new autograph, right? Mm-hmm. So everyone wants a selfie, and then within sometimes seconds I look up on whatever and here I am tagged on some picture that I just took 2 minutes ago with somebody, and that's the reality of it. I mean, and then it's just out there for, and it's something to be aware of, with the kids. It's always been a conversation with Allie and I, navigating the waters with our girls, like how much exposure to them, they kind of get a kick out of it, like, oh, daddy's with this, daddy's taking a picture. They think it's kind of like funny and cool. They're very used to it. Their sense of reality is so different,
So, yeah.
Then, yeah. which breaks my heart sometimes. Like I love the opportunities that they've been able to have and do
Right.
the things that they've been, able to do. But then sometimes I'm like, man, their reality is just so skewed. Like there's paparazzi everywhere because someone's rolling a camera all the time. Like you
It's
better know that.
terrifying. Yeah.
You better really know that. Don't get caught slipping. Let me ask you a question. How, in a world where, as a photographer, your skill is lighting and sort of controlling the image and the whole thing, in this new world of filters and everyone has a camera,
Yeah.
and like, what's the sense of that? Do you feel almost robbed a little bit? Like,
I'm pulled different ways because
I was gonna say it's like a double-edged sword for you, right?
yeah, because I want people that are really interested in photography to have every possible outlet that they can to explore that and what that means for
Right.
them and figuring that out. The oversharing, I guess, is something that's like disappointing. Is like there's if you're sharing everything, then what's the point in like going to a gallery show or being excited to have some sort of event that revolves around,
Totally.
sharing the art and.
No, I agree. It's funny you say that because this is totally different, but it's the same idea. The value of an image. We got Sailor, my daughter, a Polaroid camera,
Mm-hmm.
and she cherishes those shots, and she brings it out on occasions.
Mm-hmm.
She takes one picture, and she has this photo album that through the last couple of years, she's had about 2 years now.
Yeah.
She's chronicled, maybe once a month, once every other month, kind of like when we were kids. Like, how many images do you have? You have a few, right? I mean, you don't have every single
Actually,
day.
I have that's all I spent money on was like disposable cameras. I literally have like stacks of negatives. And it took me, no joke, 7 hours the other day to just go through it because I hadn't done it. So since we moved, and I'm like, I need to unpack these boxes. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, child. I have the same picture of like a creek. I'm like, one picture, you don't need it.
When was the last time you worked with film?
That's a great question. Last December, I shot really close friends of ours got married, and we stood up for them. We were one of 4 guests. And so I documented the whole day and we did film. And then I actually gave everybody else film camera too.
I just found one of those disposable cameras like stuffed in a drawer that I've had for, I don't know how, like 20 years. I'm like, I got to get that thing. I don't know what's on it. It's probably blown out.
That's the best. Those are so fun. I do miss like the wait process and picking it up, like the anticipation of like what's on my film,
Totally. That's what I remember as a kid. Like you would take it, there'd be a roll in a camera for, a month or something. It'd be like, oh, there's a few pictures left on it. You'd be waiting and then it'd get fine. You don't even remember what the pictures were. And then you're going through it like, oh my God, check this out. Oh, that didn't come out. Oh, that's cut off, or the film.
And having to get doubles for your friends.
Yes, totally. Oh man. The doubles was so important.
Oh my gosh. We had an Albertsons, like I always took my film to Albertsons to be developed, and the photo guy had a crush on my mom. So would literally tell her everything on my film before
that's so messed up.
I could pick it up. I remember there was like this bonfire party that I went to, and she knew everything. And I'm like, how do you know who was there? How did you find this out?
That's so creepy.
Yeah,
that's
his
like
name was Dan. I remember exactly what he looks like and everything.
Man, a spine on you. Woo! Of all the photographers that I've worked with, like what are the kind of main qualities that have stuck out? Number one, and this is going to sound super obvious, to especially someone like you because you're so good, but is the obsession with light. And some photographers, aren't, and all the great ones are that I've worked with, and everyone approaches it, I think, differently, their relationship with light, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I think every great photographer I've ever worked with, I always feel safe when I can tell right away they're obsessed with light. Other little things that this is going to sound really funny, but are just like random, but like music is always a fun one on set. Yeah. I always find I jive well with photographers when there's just music playing.
Right.
Because I think it needs to be a creative process. And that just inspires creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And that when everyone's loose and having fun,
Right.
there's, something to be said about that.
What are some of those things that on set, like, because for men, I mean, it's a lot different. Like, how do you feel when you're getting your hair and makeup done and all of these things that are kind of required from that photographer standpoint when it comes to a gallery shoot or editorial even?
It's funny. I think it's like, I'm kind of like the old fashioned, like, dudes dude, but I can totally appreciate it now that I'm in the business. I'm like, okay, you need these, you got to check these boxes. You want to do a great shoot, you got to check these boxes off, along with like a real lighting kit and a real, all this stuff. It's like hair and makeup is vital. It really is. Because makeup and light play hand in hand. And like, you are your own bounce board in a sense. Like, so depending on how your surface is,
like, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think it all, so I find it to be very important. And then it goes beyond that, because then it goes to those personalities. Yes, the product is one thing, but the personalities, like, add to the creative process, the hair and makeup folks, and like Daniel, I mean,
I was just going to say, Daniel elevates everything.
It does. It really does. And even though I think the best photographers, and you're great at this, is that even though it's a single moment of time, it can tell a whole story. And so those are the best shots, where there's like emotion popping out of the page. Like, it's like halfway through something happening versus just a, pose, so to speak.
Right. Creating a storyline.
100%. Yeah.
The editorial that we did, it like remains one of my all-time favorite shoots.
I think about it all the time. No, it was definitely my favorite shoot forever. Highlighted by the photographer stepping in a pile of shit, but being totally okay with it because she's from Montana and she's like, I've been here before. I remember you backing up onto, like, it was like a hill of like,
I needed the elevation.
You did. I know. You totally did. You're like, I need this angle. I need this elevation. I'm in my boots. We're getting the shot. You're on the tractor. But no, that was, and that was a perfect example of, like, we went to like different areas of that, like, ranch or whatever you call it, but to find what the story in the moment would be, whether I'm working and carrying something or whatever, but it was all kind of part of the collaborative creative experience. I just remember specifically in that shoot, just walking around with you going, oh, go jump on that thing. Yeah. Or, oh, go, and then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's okay when it doesn't. It's your, and then all of a sudden you find some cool flare and you're like, oh wait, go right,
Oh my gosh. That's so funny, because the sun flare on that very last shot after you shaved.
Yes.
Sun flare. And then Daniel walked by and he like threw dust up and I was like, oh, keep doing that.
Yeah, exactly. He's in the background, like
kicking dust behind you.
Totally.
That was like everything coming together. I was like, oh, perfect.
Exactly. And that comes on the heels of just being open and creative and walking, and letting it, trusting that the solution's there and letting the creative process unfold. I remember working with a photographer who took great shots. I'm not going to name his name, but it was so staged that I felt really suffocated. He was a perfectionist, and on one hand, he did some great work. Yeah. But it was not. I just never forgot that feeling.
Right. How do you come to a resolve when that's happening on set?
I think part of it, I think everyone's different. I think for me personally, I'm a very, I like to go with the flow on set, and, I do rely on trust, even if I'm not feeling totally safe. I don't mean like physically, but I mean like creatively. I still, in that moment, want to trust that the photographer sees whatever he's seeing, or the director sees what they're seeing, and go with it. I try to be as fluid and as water-like as possible. So that's, I'm not one to necessarily like, stomp my feet and walk off set. I try to do my best to, and I try to bring my own sort of lightheartedness to set as well. So I think that's probably my best way of dealing with it, but it's definitely a feeling that I walk away remembering like
Right.
that, like I felt stuffy in the photo
Mm-hmm.
shoot. And then there's other times where you can tell a photographer is just like in a hurry, and
Yeah.
there that element as well. And you're kind of like, all right, well, we're just going to kind of get what we get. And I'm not real excited about it,
Yeah.
Um, like sometimes you feel that when there's like another entity attached. In other words, like a corporate body, or,
Mm-hmm.
they're doing PR shoots for this thing.
I was just
So
going to say, well, like a gallery shoot, to kind of explain what a gallery shoot is, it's when you have a show promotion, you have to shoot, and with Fuller House specifically, there's 1 million cast members.
yes.
So you have that.
Yeah.
So you have singles, right, of everybody. Then you have duos, trios, group shots,
Yeah.
and in multiple setups. So I feel like.
Well, in most years also, exactly. In most years, we would do group shots, but we'd shoot them individually, which is a weird thing. I've actually found more common in today's world, because you're able digitally to, move people around and change things and take people in and out. So the newest
singles going like this.
Exactly. No, I was just going to say, that's exactly what it is. They'd be like, okay, you're sitting at the picnic table. So-and-so's right here doing this. So-and-so's right here doing this. And you're going to be like, 1 foot
You're
up.
You're just like Brady bunching around.
It's exactly. And then you see it all put together and you're like, okay, I get it, or I don't get it, or,
Right. What's your favorite type of shoot to be in front of or be a part of?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I have 2 photo shoots in my life that I really, really, really enjoyed. And one of them, it was our shoot.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so, I loved the people, the set. I loved the way that they turned out. It's the happiest I've ever been with shots. I think we got the most variety. I think I could pick shots that I'm like, oh, that's total editorial, or that's super artsy, or that's a headshot. Like it literally gave me a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one other really cool shoot. I worked with a great photographer, Aaron Meekums, and he does a lot of like traveling behind the scenes with bands and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Does real artsy kind of behind the scenes, cool, candid, where the set's not, it's like maybe the lighting's not perfect, but it's more almost abstracty. And we
more
just
about the energy than.
Yes, totally. So
yeah.
So he's not walking around with like lighting kits and a team, but he's finding really cool moments to capture. And sometimes it's imperfection is what makes it cool.
Mm-hmm.
But we went downtown LA and literally just drove around and like ran down into the LA River, which during magic hour, the lighting is like amazing. It's like a big studio down there, because it's like that soft, almost yellowy white sides to it when there's no water in the bottom of it. And then we just cruised around like the real kind of like industrial areas of downtown, and found just gritty, cool, random shots that, like I said, because he's not traveling with a kit or anything, some of them you turn out, you're like, well, that just doesn't work. And then other ones are like, oh, whoa, check that crazy, weird combination of stuff that we all captured into one,
That's really cool. It's definitely like editorial, like you feel like the best when it's just full on creative, no agenda kind of.
Like going back to our shoot, we didn't put any expectations on it, so to speak. And then in the end, we got anything we could have ever wanted out of it. Like I said, like I've used it as headshots. I've used it as, me smiling commercial side of me, and then a dark, serious black and white, drama side.
And I had actually never been to that location before, so there was like I knew nothing arriving.
Oh man, yeah, no, it
like just arriving on this ranch with I'm like, awesome, broken down truck. We're gonna use that.
Totally, yeah. Go grab that giant rope. And I think that goes back to like the trust of the people. We all trusted each other. That's like a set. Everyone shows up. We all, and immediately we all are enjoying ourselves, because we just are together, having fun, everyone's collectively doing what they love.
Do you have one piece of artwork that's traveled with you everywhere you've been?
So I think I have a couple. One, I have a collage. My mom, like I said, my mom's an artist, and she did a triptych, like 3 paintings that are these total abstract just kind of cool paintings that really represent who she is that I've had for a long time that I love, that actually got damaged in a move. And then I was going to put them, they were going to be a set piece in a film I was in. And I unwrapped them out of this packaging that they had been in before our move, and they got totally ruined. They got water damage on the bottom, so that the bottoms of them like rotted out. And I was like heartbroken, but behind my back, the art director was amazing, and she took all the pieces of the canvases that were not damaged and collaged them together, and has made kind of a one piece of it that is really cool, and is in our garage now on the wall, in our like playroom.
That's really cool that she was able to.
It was like amazing.
Reinvent it for you.
She totally reinvented it. It made my mom, being the artist that she is, she was like, see, it's reinvented. She said the same thing. Like, you know, it's like a whole new piece of art, you know, like she was totally, I was heartbroken. She was like, you know, just saw the silver lining in it.
Yeah.
I have a really kind of crazy cool poster that's this like, it's an illustration of animals in a forest chasing out a hunter. And it's this illustration, but it's a Pearl Jam poster from a concert. And a Pearl Jam concert that Allie and I went to right after we got married, and the whole band signed it and said congratulations on your wedding. And Pearl Jam's my favorite.
Yeah,
band.
that's awesome.
So that's framed, and that's kind of a piece of art that has you know, gone the distance now that we've been married, 12 years.
If you could give a piece of advice to the person that would love to be in your shoes, what would that be?
Oh, the craft. And I know this goes outside of photography, but I think it all goes back to the art. Don't be motivated by likes or anything, but whatever your craft, like truly work on the craft, and be a technician at what you want to do. Don't chase what the idea of the result is. The craft has to be your priority. When I first moved to LA and I was bartending and had nothing and was just like trying to find my bearings, I always, in any moment of sort of like mental darkness, went to the craft. In other words, I would pick up a script and just like read an old play, or I was reading biographies or autobiographies of different actors that I admired, or you know, going to class, things that immediathad rooted my soul. My first months of living in LA, sleeping on an air mattress, I can still hear it, like that sound. I had like a crate next to my bed and I went to Samuel French and I bought like a stack of old plays that I could just grab, read, and immediately fall into how I would break it down and, you know, obsess over the creation behind it. And it always centered me. And so,
well, and I guess that probably comes from feeling that comfort of like, that's what you did with your mom, right? Is like breaking things down and just that, like,
absolutely, for sure. It was like, 100%. It was what got me into it in the first place. It was those conversations, and that's where I found my, my comfort zone for sure. And to this day, my mom and I, that's what we talk about more than anything. It's like, she's like, what are you watching? What do you think of so-and-so? She sees every single movie in the theater. And so she reports to me on all of it. This is what you got to see. Don't see this, but this, tell me what you think of this. It's her first love for sure. And it definitely had an impact on me. And I tell people this all the time. Like sometimes I do Skype sessions with, schools, my high school or college, and, actors studying. And I tell people a lot, like, if you don't have to do it inside your soul, don't do it. Otherwise it'll eat you alive. It'll eat you up. I see this city just swallow people up because they're here for the wrong reasons.
Well, thank you again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad it worked out.
We'll have to do this again with our crews.
Yeah. And we'll, and then, we'll get you working when you come back out here because I still want to get that done.
Can't wait. That's a cool concept.
Yeah, it'll be fun and smoky.
Yeah.
So, yay.
All right. Well, I will talk to you later. Okay,
Awesome.
bye.
Stay safe.
You too.